Have you ever noticed that every place in America seems to have at least one creepy legend? There's always that abandoned house, that haunted road, or that old cemetery people tell you to stay away from. But then there's the Appalachian Mountains. Because when people talk about the Appalachians, they don't usually point out to one specific location. They talk about the entire mountain range. And almost every single time, someone says the exact same thing. Whatever you do, don't go into the Appalachian Mountains alone. Now, I'll be honest. The first time I heard that, I thought it was just another internet myth. You know how social media works. Someone posts a creepy story, another person adds their own version, and before you know it, the whole thing takes on a life of its own. But then I started digging into it. I looked into the history of these mountains, the real disappearances, the stories passed down by local families, and even the experiences shared by hikers and search and rescue teams. And here's what surprised me. The scariest part isn't that these mountains are haunted, is that you don't actually need anything supernatural for them to be terrifying. Because once you understand what these mountains are really like, you realize why this warning has survived for generations. So today, let's talk about why so many people believe you should never go into the Appalachian Mountains alone. Before we start digging into the mysteries of these mountains, let's talk about them for a second because I think that's where everything begins. The Appalachian Mountains stretch for around 2,000 miles, running from Alabama to all the way into Canada. They are also one of the oldest mountain ranges on Earth. Scientists believe they're more than 400 million years old. Think about that for a second. These mountains were already ancient before humans ever existed. Now imagine standing in the middle of them. You look in one direction, nothing but trees. Turn around, more trees. You climb a hill hoping to get your bearings, and all you see is another ridge covered in even more forest. It's beautiful, no doubt about that, but it's also incredibly isolating. And that's something people often underestimate. Today, we live in a world where we're used to hearing traffic, airplanes, phones buzzing all the time, and seeing another person every few minutes. In the Appalachians, there are places where you can hike for hours without seeing anyone. No phone signal, no nearby roads, no quick way to call for help. It's just you and the woods. And that's exactly where the stories begin. If you've ever looked into missing person cases in America's national parks, you've probably come across the name Dennis Martin. It happened in June of 1969. Dennis was only 6 years old. He was camping with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park during Father's Day weekend. It was supposed to be a normal family trip. At one point, Dennis and a few other kids decided they wanted to surprise the adults, so they hid behind some bushes. The plan was simple: wait, jump out, scare everyone. The other kids came running back. Dennis didn't. At first, nobody panicked. I mean, he's just 6 years old. Maybe he wandered a little farther than everyone else. But minutes turned into hours. Hours turned into an all out search. And that's when things became unbelievable. More than 1,000 people searched those mountains: park rangers, volunteers, the National Guard. Even Green Berets trained in jungle survival joined the search. Helicopters flew overhead. Dogs tracked scents. Every possible trail was checked. But despite one of the biggest search operations the park had ever seen, there was nothing. No backpack, no clothing, no footprints, nothing. One witness later claimed they saw a disheveled man carrying what looked like a child over his shoulder. Others believe Dennis simply became lost in the dense wilderness. The truth is, no one knows. And it's been 50 years since the incident. His family still doesn't have an answer. Now, does that mean something paranormal happened? No. But cases like this remind us just how quickly someone can disappear in these mountains. And unfortunately, Dennis wasn't the last. Here's something I found really interesting while researching this video. If you ask people who grew up in the Appalachia whether the mountains are haunted or not, most of them won't immediately start talking about ghosts. Instead, they'll start giving you advice. They'll say things like, if the woods suddenly go quiet, pay attention. If something doesn't feel right, leave. Don't wander off the trail. And then there's probably the most famous piece of Appalachian folklore. If you hear someone calling your name in the woods, don't answer until you know exactly who's calling. Now, obviously, there's no evidence that some mysterious force is waiting for people in the forest, but these stories weren't created by influencers trying to get views. Many of them had been passed down through families for generations. The same goes for another famous warning: don't whistle at night. Depending on who you ask, whistling is believed to attract bad luck, spirits, or simply things you'd rather not encounter. Again, these are legends, not facts. But what's fascinating is how many different communities across Appalachia tell versions of the same stories. When traditions survive for hundreds of years, even if they're just folklore, you have to wonder what inspired them in the first place. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Let's forget ghosts for a minute, because your own brain can become your biggest enemy out there. Search and rescue experts often talk about something called panic psychology. When people realize they're lost, they stop thinking clearly. Instead of staying where they are, they keep walking. Instead of conserving energy, they rush. Instead of paying attention to landmarks, they focus on escaping. And the deeper they go, the harder they become to find. There's also something called auditory pareidolia. Basically, your brain is wired to recognize familiar sounds, even when they aren't actually there. That's why the wind can sound like whispers, and a bird call can sound like someone yelling. Branches rubbing together can sound like footsteps. You're not imagining things. Your brain is simply trying to make sense of unfamiliar sounds, and when you're already nervous, every little noise feels personal. So, after looking into all of this, here's what I think. The Appalachian Mountains don't need monsters to be frightening. The mountains themselves are enough. They're ancient, they're massive, they're isolated. And they don't care how experienced you are. Every year, millions of people hike through these forests safely and have an incredible time. But every year, search and rescue teams also head into those same woods looking for people who underestimated just how unforgiving nature can be. Maybe that's why the warning has survived for so long. Never go into the Appalachian Mountains alone. It's not necessarily because something supernatural is waiting for you behind the trees. It's because these mountains have a way of reminding people that nature is far bigger and far less predictable than we like to believe. Maybe that's the real reason these stories continue to spread. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's hiding in the woods, it's realizing how easy it would be for the woods to hide you. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into real mystery, strange disappearances, and the darker side of history, make sure to subscribe because we've got plenty more stories coming. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and maybe don't wander too far off the trail.